Andrew Biggio is United States Marine Corps Infantry Sergeant. He currently is a Boston, Massachusetts police officer as well. And he's got a new book out, The Rifle, Combat Stories from America's Last World War II Veterans Told Through an M1 Garand. And you were telling me some pithy sloganeering you all did at your time at the academy about your rifle. Tell us. You have to turn your microphone on so people can hear you. Oh, there you go.
Oh, is it on?
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Right,
I have no control here.
Yeah,
You're controlling the audio.
Right.
So you can
controlling
just
the audio and visual.
You can cut me off right after this comment. You'll probably cut me off. I mean, who knows what the lines will probably light up. But I mean, when I went to West Point, brand new cadet, really very much new to all this stuff, hadn't really held a weapon before, and we always called it our weapon. And the reason for that is the quip at West Point was, this is my weapon, this is my gun. One is for fighting, the other's for fun.
Wow. You ladies at West Point were pretty profane.
Well,
wow.
No, I heard that from the guys at West Point.
I
that
see.
came from the guys, obviously.
I see. Okay.
But we refer to them as weapons, and this is the rifle M1 Garand is referred to as the weapon that won World War II.
I wonder, it's just a hazard, I guess. I wonder if there was any pithy sloganeering in the Marine Corps. I wonder if they had any sayings they like to share. Andrew Biggio, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Did Genie's, have you heard that one before? This is my weapon and this is my rifle?
Yep. Yeah, we had in the Marine Corps, we had the Rifleman's Creed.
What is that?
This is my rifle. There are many other like it, but this one is mine. And then it went on to, what our rifle does to protect us and stuff I can't say on the radio.
Okay,
so.
All right, good. I should have joined the Marine Corps just for the
slogans.
Yeah, just for the banter, because I think that's mostly what people go into the services, right? For the banter, the camaraderie.
You would add some philosophical sort of references
to
it, and totally over their heads.
The metaphor. I would have been to the Marine Corps what Leaping Lanny Poffo was to World Wrestling, which is the poet laureate of WWF. That would have been me in the Marine Corps. Marine Corps could use a poet laureate, perhaps. So, Andrew, I want to talk to you a little bit about being a police officer these days, too. But the book, The Rifle, Combat Stories from America's Last World War II Veterans. Tell us a little bit about the genesis of this book.
Sure. Well, I came back from Iraq and Afghanistan and really just simply wanted to seek out America's last World War II veterans on how to live a successful life after combat. I thought it would be, when I found out the last World War I veteran died in 2011, I realized a whole generation of veterans had disappeared before our eyes, and I knew it was going to be a race against time, but the World War II veterans were not far behind, basically. So I wanted to rush and collect as much wisdom and advice from them as possible before we lost our World War II veterans, which we are. We're losing almost 1,000 a day. There's less than 300,000 of them, and I thought it was important for youngest veterans of this country to bond with the oldest.
Well, give us perhaps one of the most compelling or surprising combat stories you were able to glean from the World War II vets you spoke with.
So I did something unique. So basically, I wasn't the first person to write a book about World War II. So in my journeys, I brought with me an M1 Garand, which was the standard rifle of that time. It was the most issued rifle of that time. It was every veteran was going to have some sort of memory or feeling with this because it was the first thing that they were handed once they got sent away from home. They were drafted. They were used in boot camp, or they actually used it in physical combat. So with me, I would bring an M1 Garand, simply meet up with this veteran and say, hey, do you remember this? And hand them the rifle. And when they lit up, like they were 19 years old again, or just stared at it, the weapon acted like a microphone, really. So I had all these veterans just telling me all their memories with this M1 Garand, whether it was basic training or whether it was the Battle of Okinawa or the Battle of the Bulge. It the stories would just come out. And I did this over 200 times. I brought this rifle. And of course, when I'm bringing the rifle to their home, I'm having them sign their name to it. So on the wooden stock. So I collected over 200 names in about 5 years, and I had to pick 17 of 17 of what I thought were the best stories for my book, The Rifle.
Wow, that's a cool way to do it too. That's very creative. I mean, and get
That's
to
great.
and to get them talking too. I mean, it sounds like something that could be optioned into a series of some sort. Maybe
I hope.
yeah, maybe Netflix or Amazon will come calling.
Well, I spent my
Yeah.
I spent my time in the Army, primarily in Germany, and of course World War II. Was prominent in our mind. I was still there during the Cold War, and then I actually was stationed there in '89 when the wall fell. So you did see the fruition of leadership under Ronald Reagan and others that made that happen. Leadership matters, and I got invested in researching a lot more about World War II. One of my favorite stories from World War II is that of the intelligence and reconnaissance platoon from the 394th Infantry Regiment of the 99th Infantry Division, which is the most decorated platoon of World War II. This is Lyle Bauk. He's 20 years old, and he essentially, disrupts the enemy and holds off the German 6th Panzer's army long enough so that we can reconstitute on the back end and basically make sure that Hitler's last stance fails. And he and his 18 men held out for nearly 18 hours against the enemy. And these stories need to be told and retold and retold. And that story is actually retold in a book called The Longest Winter by Alex Kershaw.
So for once, I'm on a radio station where you actually taught me something. So that's amazing. Yeah, I'm very familiar with the 99th Division. There's a couple survivors in here, but that's the first time I heard about that platoon. That's really great.
Well, it's interesting to me, too, because Lyle Bauk's son, Dwight Bauk, lives in Wheaton and in my neighborhood.
Wow.
Interesting. And
does he want to sign the rifle?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, right. So, you had this idea and you pursued it, and then you came up with this innovation using the M1 as the microphone, as you said. So then what did you come away with after 200 interviews of 200 different World War II veterans?
It's a great question. Many different things, but I think what the first thing was a lot of us, the Iraq and Afghanistan veterans, we all rose our hand and enlisted after 9/11, and I was interviewing each World War II veteran and what they did because of Pearl Harbor. They raised their hand, they wanted to defend their nation, and I started to slowly realize that they were no different than the men and women today who really wanted to just serve their country and if needed, give their lives for the betterment of the world. And they are the greatest generation, but each veteran would tell me, like, listen, this whole greatest generation, sometimes we did things that weren't so great in order to win the war. So don't live in our shadows. We're not gods. Don't try to be like us. We were just ordinary men who were thrown into an extraordinary time. And a lot of them really were driving that point home when each time I met them. They told me a lot about the brutal force that was used to win in the Pacific. A lot of the bombing and chaos and in war crimes that were used even in Europe against the Germans in order to win. It was just won by complete brute force, and it wasn't all just swing dancing, milkshakes, and victory parades as like we see a lot in the movies and stuff.
I wonder.
Interesting.
I wonder too. Like you see this in some of the interviews in that series, Band of Brothers. The interviews at the end of the episodes, and so many of the stories, particularly as these World War II veterans have gotten older, are about those who didn't make it back. Their brothers who they saw die in combat with them. And then especially when you reflect on it now, when they're in their 70s, 80s, 90s now, and say, boy, the life I led, and then my friend that I served with back in World War II didn't make it out, never had the chance to experience this subsequent 70, 60 or 70, 80 years of life
Right.
that I experienced.
Yeah, I mean, the first part of, so basically the book starts off with me coming home from Iraq and Afghanistan, and my name is Andrew Biggio. And every day I have to pass Andrew Biggio Square in my town.
Wow.
It's not for me. It's my grandfather's brother who was killed at 19 years old. 19. Didn't get to have a career, a girlfriend, a wife, go to college, a job, have kids. 19. What do you know at 19 besides poor kid gets killed in the hills of Italy, all right, fighting with the 34th Division. So I started to read his last letters home before he was killed, and that's how he wrote about how much he enjoyed the M1 Garand. He was telling his mother about the rifle he was carrying. So I had to go out and buy one. I wanted to feel what he felt, hold what he held, try to tell his story if possible. And the best way to do that would be bring that M1 Garand to these other veterans so they could tell me and help tell Andy's story, because Andy couldn't. So naturally, at the end of the book, I find survivors who were with them in that hill in Italy.
Wow.
That's cool.
Wow.
Yeah, that's cool. The book, The Rifle, Combat Stories from America's Last World War II Veterans Told Through an M1 Garand. Andrew Biggio is the author. He's also a United States Marine Corps infantry sergeant and, as he mentioned, Afghanistan and Iraq veteran. He serves as a police officer now in Boston, Massachusetts. Andrew, thanks so much for joining us. Good luck with the book.
Thanks for having me, sir.
And he joined us on the Turnkey.pro answer line.
It's what Chicago is talking about. It's Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy on AM 560. The Answer.
Hello, golfers. This is Chuck Lynch, PGA professional and founder of the Play Better Golf Academy. Whether you're a beginner seeking to learn the fundamentals, a seasoned veteran in need of improvement, or a parent that wants to introduce your child to golf, I have some exciting news for you. Parents, camp registration for tots and juniors, ages 4 to 14, is now open. Camps will start mid-June at 2 locations, Addison Links and Tees and Twin Lakes Golf Course. Beginners and advanced players, our PGA instructors will work with you to custom tailor an individual learning program, including